Hello, everyone. This is MMT and the Public Purpose, and I'm your host, Joe Firestone. My guest for tonight is Professor of Economics Matthew Forstater, who is a professor at University of Missouri at Kansas City. And he is also the research director of the Global Institute for Sustainable Prosperity, which is at Denison University. And he is one of the MMT originals. He goes way back to the beginning. And he previously was director of research at the Center for Full Employment and Stability, at UMKC. And he has worked with hundreds of graduate students and devoted himself mostly to teaching. And he's just done a lot of very magnificent research, and work. We've had two previous conversations. We had a solo Kerberos Media chat, which was extremely interesting. And Lisa and I were able to have a great conversation with him on July 5th. And in that conversation, we decided that there were a lot of stones still left unturned. And so we decided it would be good to talk of a number of other issues tonight. And before I turn things over to Matt, the subjects we thought we would discuss include the solidarity economy, ecological and economic violence, Juliet Shore's ideas about downshifting, and also plenitude, very interesting term, of course. Also, I wanted to talk further about the integration of domestic and foreign policy through the public purpose. I also thought it might be interesting to talk about, if we get to it, lessons of the mobilization economy and political will. So those are among the things on the agenda for tonight. And of course, we'll have all kinds of things come up during the conversation.
Right.
So now I am going to throw the mic over to Matt. And I guess we'll be starting with solidarity economy, right?
Sure. Why not? I mean, yeah. So maybe not everyone is familiar with the term, but the solidarity economy, sometimes referred to as the social and solidarity economy, SSE, and social economy and social economics, of course, it is a long-standing heterodox sub-school, social economics. So the Association for Social Economics, the ASE, and the Review of Social Economy, ROSE, and also Forum for Social Economics, FFSE, I guess. Those are all organizationally, the ASE has these two, I think it might be three now, journals, Review of Social Economy and Forum for Social Economics. Now, Association for Social Economics, or Association for Social Economy, was one of the 7 original members of the ASSA, the Allied Social Science Association, the main one being the American Economic Association, which is the largest mainstream international, even though it's called American, but international economics, professional organization. And the annual meetings, uh, everybody thinks of it and refers to it as the AEA, American Economics Association, but it's actually the ASSA, Allied Social Science Association, which is an umbrella, organization.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a it's a you know organizations are the members, right, of the ASSA, and it has the AEA as the main, biggest, richest, most powerful professional organization within the ASSA. But then there were 6 other original um, organizations that made up the ASSA, and one of them was the Association for Social Economics or Social Economy. It was only included at Schumpeter's insistence, and at that time, the name of the organization was the Catholic Economics Association. And so Schumpeter had, I don't know the exact story, but he had a stepfather. Heilbronner has written a bit, and then there are a couple excellent biographies or intellectual biographies of Schumpeter. But in any case, he insisted that, and then I don't know when the name changed from, there is a a a kind of progressive um, uh, economic agenda within the Catholic Church that goes back to the I forget what they call it exactly, but it's when the Pope, writes up a
You mean the encyclicals?
yeah, exactly. So, you know, more or less, they had like, or they use this late 19th century one and a couple others um, to um, give support for things like maybe a guaranteed income, a living wage, or a higher minimum wage, and uh, generally kind of greater equality and some progressive. So there are some, and there's also a link, informal link between the institutional economics followers of Veblen and Commons and so on, and social economics. I realized this when I started going to the meetings, and it was many of the same um, people were making up the board and the other positions, the officers of the American institutionalists with their Association for Evolutionary Economics
Hmm.
and the Association for Social Economics. Now, this is all so when it changed its name from Catholic Economics Association to Association for Social Economics, the idea was that it would broaden its mission in a sense, or broaden its scope, instead of being kind of focused on, you know, Catholicism and the implications of the traditions within Catholicism. You know, there's liberation theology, you know, the Jesuits in Latin America, not
Here.
you know, here or in Europe, but yeah. So uh, so they broadened it from a Catholic, you know, sort of based political economy to sort of a focus on not just economics and religion, but I'd say economics and ethics. So that's and even when I first got involved, you know, attended their um, annual meeting, the social economics. Uh, Still, I think every president they ever had and every board member they ever had was at a Catholic university. Um, you know, people like John B. Davis from Marquette, and Charlie Clark from St. John's, and many other people who are known in institutionalist and other heterodox economics uh, circles. And so, Review of Social Economy, I mean, it's an excellent journal, and it's not any longer. It might have a bit of an emphasis on, you know, ethics and so on, but there are, you know, many papers published in the journal. Now, the Forum for Social Economics kind of does continue to have that ethics uh, theme, but Review of Social Economy is just a heterodox journal. Now, the thing is that uh, you may be familiar with Black political economy,
Yeah.
and the NEA, National Economics Association, and the Review of Black Political Economy. Ironically, of all the disciplines, you know, like in the 60s, you had, you know, a journal of Black sociology, a journal of Black, you know, literature, you know, like many, like, you know, in the 60s, like around the time of the civil rights transitioning to like the Black Power movement, and you had a kind of resurgence of, you say, maybe cultural nationalism, in the sense of nationalism in the sense of liberatory, you know, because you still had a number of um, countries on the continent that were not yet even politically independent.
Yeah.
I mean, Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, 1975, Zimbabwe 1980, South Africa 1994, I suppose. So even though many, if most, sub-Saharan African nations had achieved political independence by, let's say, 1963, between 1957 and 1963, starting with Ghana in 57. Then you had still the inspiration of the freedom struggles on the continent and the African American freedom struggle and the Afro Caribbean and Brazilian and so on. So, I mean, leaders of the Black Power movement like Stokely Carmichael and even people like George Jackson, Eldridge Cleaver, Huey Newton, Black Panther Party, and obviously Angela Davis and so on as well, but Kathleen Cleaver. But the thing is, in addition to supporting a job guarantee, which was part of the Black Panther 10-point program, number 2, which is just like amazing, because after, I actually published my piece on Dr. King on the job guarantee in the Forum for Social Economics, right? And then I did a follow-up later that was in the International Journal of Political Economy, and then another in Review of Black Political Economy that discussed other and also later support within African American leadership, civil rights leadership, and political leadership that across something of it's not left to right in the sense of mainstream U.S. politics, but I mean, you had, you had socialists, black nationalists, civil rights movement leaders, but also Black Power movement leaders. I mean, religion, black churches, and so on and so forth, all explicitly not only supporting full employment, but explicitly a job guarantee, which they referred to as public service employment often, and Bayard Rustin, of course, lived on after Dr. King's assassination.
Yes.
And continued to do important work. And Coretta Scott King also, as David Stein, has really taken this work and is just a wonderful historian, and so he's done a lot. And Nina Banks, who has kind of rediscovered, reinterpreted, and brought to light um, Sadie Alexander actually first African American to earn a PhD. I might have to check this. It might be in any field, and not just economics. But in any case, also with the job guarantee. And I always, say to the students, like, when a demographic group that has, on average overall, double the official unemployment rate, which we know doesn't count many, many people, right? But when a demographic group has unusually high, disproportionately high unemployment, then I'm listening to their views about these and related matters.
Yeah.
And what, history is telling us, is teaching us, is that there was almost a universal support among African American leaders and organizations across quite a wide political spectrum, not just in support of full employment, but explicitly in support of a job guarantee.
Mm.
And the freedom budget, which the A. Philip Randolph Institute, A. Philip Randolph, also another of the great and lesser known, I would say, um, leaders, but he actually was instrumental in organizing the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom.
Yes.
And, he had organized the first March on Washington, which never took place. It was in 1946, I believe, and the there was a meeting. Perhaps FDR. No, wait a minute. Would it FDR? I think it was still FDR, and
Not in 46.
okay, so it was 44.
Could that have been the march in 1938?
No,
It was getting
no.
organized. No.
The MOWM, March on Washington movement, I believe. We can look it up, but it's in these papers I'm referring to as well. One's called From Civil Rights to Economic Security. The great unfinished task of
The New
the
Deal.
civil rights movement, according to all civil rights leaders themselves, was the economic piece. And they viewed the economic piece as a necessary but not sufficient condition for all the other rights and freedoms. Without the economic foundation, then political power and many other things, and then when you have that economic piece, many of these other things, again, necessary but not sufficient. So, not in any way making an economic deterministic argument here that all you have to do is get the economics right and everything else will magically. No, you could have, as we know, fantastic economic ideas, but the political, social, cultural, right, aspects are preventing us from instituting those economic policies. But in any case, all this has been a prelude. So, well, the thing that I was to say is how ironic that of all the academic fields, to have the African American Professional Organization and its journal, which almost every discipline had something like this in the 60s, but in many cases they didn't last more than a year or two or a couple years. It certainly didn't make it into the second half of the 1970s. Yet the NEA is still going strong, and the Review of Black Political Economy is still going strong. And you could say also that perhaps feminist economics and the International Association for Feminist Economics also is another, unlikely candidate if people had to pick in advance. What discipline do you think will still have these organizations and these journals in 2022 that and so it's kind of amazing. But there is a fantastic professor in Canada. So she has basically founded a paradigm, Black social economy, which is not the same thing as Black political economy, and it's not exactly the same thing as social economics without the Black, so I'm gonna do you have a website where we could, like, if I mention a book, then we can put like the info up someplace, or is it better just to do it on Twitter and then tag you and the gang and all that? Do you have a
You mean for now, just to list some of these ideas somewhere?
Well, I'm mentioning it now, but then, like, we could say to listeners, if you want the full citation, we're going to be posting it later on the website.
Well, it can be posted. It can be posted here in the comments.
Oh, okay. I don't see the
We're
comments.
also hang on a second. We are live streaming now to
Right.
Facebook.
Oh, okay. Facebook. I see.
We're live streaming to YouTube, and we're live streaming to Twitter.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
and in fact, we're live streaming to the Kerberos Media LLC Facebook page,
Okay.
and to Shane Coughlin's Facebook page, okay, as well. And uh, we are also streaming to 3 Twitter pages.
Okay. So, I mean, let. So, is there a thing
Okay,
like?
so if you take one, if you go to Kerberos Media LLC on the Facebook's page, then you will
Right.
be able to leave in the comments
Okay.
the comments, okay, that you want to make, but also
Yeah.
here, okay, there is also here a private chat
Yeah.
you can use. If you see the private chat,
Yeah. I
okay,
I think I'm uh going to put the name of the book and the author, Caroline Shanaz Hossein. Are you familiar with her?
no, I am not. But if you list her in the private chat,
Yeah.
then I can copy and paste that into the public comments,
Okay.
and then people would be able to see that, okay, in the public comments, okay, whatever you want to note there.
Okay. She's got like a few edited books like The Black Social Economy, exploring diverse community-based economics. And so I don't know if you are familiar with, there were two um scholars, one in Australia and one uh in Massachusetts, and they wrote a lot of books and articles together under a pen name that combined their two names. So
I
it's
know.
Julie Graham and Catherine Gibson, and they published under J.K. Gibson Graham. So yeah, and um, and one of their articles or subtitle of one of their books is how to smash capitalism while working at home in your spare time, something like that. So they're both feminists, kind of geographers slash political economy scholars or whatever. And one of the things that they have emphasized is what people will refer to as the solidarity economy, which is a term that is used to encompass a whole variety of non-capitalist spaces, not far into the future in our imaginations only, but existing here and now, even though we have the larger capitalist system in existence.
So they exist inside of the capitalist system.
Yes, in the little space.
Corners,
Yeah, in
little
between.
interstices.
yeah, the interstices, or whatever. So yeah, I mean, and so one of the the uh great things that they do is to give like lots and lots of examples. And I think, especially with students, undergrads, and so on, that is always very helpful, because it takes it out of this very abstract, because already we've got academia with its terminology and its, kind of highfalutin sounding terms and
Yes,
all this kind of
priesthood.
stuff, right?
The
And
terminology of the priesthood.
yeah, right, exactly. And so, uh, yeah, I mean, so they will, they, I mean, they're brilliant critical theorists and so on, um, uh, but they try to, um, not get all fancy, so that nobody can, understand what they're saying. So in any case, um, yeah, the solidarity economy is used to encompass, all of these things, like, NGOs, um, some, and this is one of uh, Caroline Hossein's uh, emphases, is that it even includes some market activities. It's not just non-profit or public sector activities, although the solidarity economy, you know, does include some of those, but not necessarily all. Not everything the government does, or everything that, is going to be included, because the solidarity economy, it's not just that it is non-capitalist, but also that there are these spaces where economics and ethics cannot be separated. And I mean, it's just unbelievable opening the newspaper every day. I mean, you set aside the mass shootings and the, the, uh, and women's right to control their bodies, and Russia and Ukraine and all the, just the economics news, and the news that we would maybe find in the business section, of so much corruption, so much excess, so much greed. I mean, whether it is the obituary for Ivana Trump, or it's the uh you know latest story of uh Bitcoin type, you know catastrophes, um or, I mean, it's just, and uh, I mean, when did things become so, like, I would think, like, I wasn't old enough to be part of the 1960s. I was, in elementary school. So, like, my older siblings, were either, political or kind of hippies or whatever.
Yeah, so I'm old enough to have been part of
Right. So,
1960s.
right. So
I'm
after,
but sort of beat generation.
right. Love it. Love it.
I go back that
The
far.
beret. Yeah.
Well, actually, this is a Medicare for All beret.
Oh, love it. Cause I saw like some of the people who like the you know the messages from you or from I it says like red berets in there.
Yes, those are the people who are really, really central to the Red Berets movement.
Right. Medicare for all.
The way that I got involved with them, okay, is that okay. Well, first of all, I was in the early part of 2000, okay, in 21, the very early part, the first few days of 2000, okay, in 21, I was trying to get a Twitter movement going to replace Nancy Pelosi on January 3rd. Actually, I started getting involved in that on December 15th. And now Jimmy Dore had another movement that was going along at the same time. Uh, he was trying to get people to get a floor vote before a Medicare for All bill. And of course, he had, millions of followers, and the people he joined up with, had millions of followers. So they had their thing. I wanted to do something that I thought would be more effective and more practical, and that was to get rid of Nancy Pelosi, someone else in there, because then you could have your floor votes for Medicare for all, and you could have
Right.
a lot of other things going at the same time. It
Right.
seemed to me the most important thing was figuratively to cut off her head. Okay, so that's what
Right.
I was trying to do.
Right.
And one of the groups that supported me was the Red Berets group.
Okay.
And I had no idea who they were at that
Right.
point. Okay, but
Right.
they supported me, and I noted some names that were friendly to me
Right.
at that time. So then, early in June, one of my friends, actually Lana Dell,
Oh yeah.
and uh, called my attention uh, to some fights that were going on between these activists for Medicare for All and the Real Progressives group, and
Oh,
who were followers, okay, of that particular group.
I see.
And the Real Progressives people were trying to say that there was a conflict involved because the Red Berets, because things were getting shut down, okay, in Washington. The Red Berets, who from the beginning, when they first started in, I guess, about 2017, they were working both the road uh, to a national Medicare for All bill, and also becoming very active in Washington State, to do a ballot initiative in
Right.
Washington State to get a single payer bill there.
Right.
Okay, and so the Real Progressives thought that what they were doing was a diversion, that there was basically an inherent conflict uh, in that. Uh, of course, there might be logically, a little bit of a conflict, but we are talking movement politics,
Right.
and we are talking about trying to invigorate a movement and to build it from the bottom up and get mass support for the movement. So it seemed to me there was nothing about the MMT approach that suggested that it was somehow bad politics to try to do both at the same time.
Right.
And the real progressive people were trying to make the case that what the Red Berets were doing was in conflict, okay, with MMT.
Mm.
Okay, so at that point, I started looking at the tweets, that were going on around this, and it was really a ferocious fight. People were calling each other all kinds of names, and it was going back and forth for days and days at a time. This was in June of 2021.
Mm.
And so I started getting involved in the Twitter fights just a little bit. Then I began to think through some of the claims, that were being made. Okay, and on the in-depth show that I was doing at that time, 4 times a week. Okay, I started doing some talks, basically supporting the Red Berets approach.
Okay.
And so at that time, I got, a lot more deeply involved with them. And I was trying to expose the logic and trying to make it clear to people that there was no inherent conflict. And anyway, the fights surrounding my streams and the Twitter fights were getting me more and more involved with them. And the way I started working with Lisa, for example, is that but Laura Fielding, who's the executive director of the Red Berets group, which is really just a social network. It's not a formal group in that sense, social network. Okay, but Lisa was the operations director, still is actually the operations director of that. And so Laura didn't have time to cope with me. But she thought, as operations director, I should be communicating with Lisa. And so that's how, I got to know her. And we've been working pretty closely together for about a year now.
Nice.
And generally speaking, the Red Berets support me in what I do on the internet, because I help them. So it was
Right.
a mutual support kind of thing. And after this went on for a month or two, they sent me some Red Berets. They're kind enough to send me some Red Berets.
Nice.
I'm a part of my uniform
Nice.
at this point, and what it signifies is my support for both Medicare for all and single payer. Okay, at the same time, I'm going to post what you put in the private chat.
Right.
I'm posting that at this point in
Nice.
the public chat. Okay, as well. So.
Okay, thanks.
Hang on a second. It'll be in there for a minute. Anything else that you want to write down? Okay, I can post there, and it will remain in the public chat.
Okay. Well, I will. I'll put the next one that I'll mention is one of the founders of peace studies and peace and conflict resolution studies, Johann Galtung.
Oh, I know Johann Galtung well because
Right.
during the 1960s and the 1970s, my primary area of specialization was in political integration and political conflict,
Right.
the conflict resolution. I was a member of the Peace Research Society back then, and the the Science Society, when it changed its name to that. Uh, I actually published a lot of work in that area, the conflict.
Nice.
Okay, I think my articles are still pretty well known even today.
Nice. Okay. So, one of his better known earlier pieces was A Structural Theory of Imperialism.
Yes, I think I've read that.
And, but the concept that has had a big influence on me is his idea of structural violence. And then he and others over the years have elaborated this idea of structural violence, and there's been some additional kind of sub concepts, including economic violence. You sometimes see him use cultural violence as well, but I don't think that I've seen Galtung himself use the term ecological violence, but you do find it now in the literature currently. And so, basically, you have, first of all, the distinction between what he'll call direct violence and then indirect or structural violence.
The structural violence being violence that's inherent in the way you order institutions, or the way you order a society,
Right,
or the way you create a culture.
right,
That there would be certain elements of the culture that would do violence to certain groups and
right,
certain people just because of the way it's structured.
right. Exactly. And so, you know, like other structures and institutions, they are, created by human individuals and human groups, but they, you know, outlive can outlive and outlast individual uh individuals and uh and human groups. So that means that like other structures and institutions, they can kind of take on a life of their own where, like you were saying, inherent in. So the very structure of these organizations harms women and children and men, and right, does physical harm, but also mental, emotional, trauma,
Sure.
and the many struggles right now, young people, depression and anxiety and so on. But
Right.
you know
Such as the change that the Supreme Court has imposed on us with the overturning, okay, of Roe v. Wade.
Right. I mean,
I mean, we can see the harms in just a few weeks. We can see the harms
ab-
starting to happen before our very eyes.
absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. So, uh, so economic violence would include things like unemployment, poverty, inequality, uh, discrimination, patriarchy, right? All do harm to individuals and groups. And it could be physical harm, it could be, because if you're undernourished and suffering from physical and mental, emotional health problems because of pollution in the atmosphere, lead in the environment, uh, because of so many dangers of not having access to clean water or to breathe clean air.
Of the violence that happened in Flint, for example,
Right.
over a period of years.
Absolutely. And then of course you also have um you know violence that is direct but is linked to environmental activism. For example, with the uh protests surrounding the oil pipelines. And in fact, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, I mean, she had an experience when she was at Standing Rock, and it was like when she's describing her kind of awakening, it was simultaneously political, cultural, I mean, dare I say, spiritual in terms of the kind of epiphanies that
She had Standing Rock.
experienced. Yes.
Yeah, there were quite a number of people who had epiphanies at Standing Rock.
Right.
At Jordan Chariton also.
Right. And so I always um, felt that ecological violence, we see so very clearly the way that our treatment of the earth and other species has we we get the effects almost immediately. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just incredible in terms of climate crisis, and not just climate though. So much about climate now, but we have many other environmental challenges as well.
Now we see the fires now.
Right. So, you know, we also have these situations like um, Ken Saro-Wiwa in Nigeria, when the Ogoni people were standing up to, I guess it was Shell, kind of Dutch Shell or whatever. they killed, and I mean the government executed Ken Saro-Wiwa, who was the leader of the Ogoni People's Movement.
They executed him because he was opposing Royal Dutch Shell.
Yes. Yes. I mean, so yeah. I once had the opportunity to have a brief email exchange with Professor Galtung, and I have to say, again, just like with the feminist economics and Black political economy, that it's so ironic that of all the fields, right, where we have these groups endure economics, so the two major founders of peace and conflict resolution studies were economists. Ken Boulding.
Oh, Ken Boulding. I knew Ken Boulding, as a matter of fact.
There
Yeah,
you go.
I used to interact with him at some of the
Quaker
conferences. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. And among
Elise Boulding. Elise Boulding.
Yes, Elise Boulding, too. Yes.
Co-founder of Peace and Conflict Resolution Studies and a brilliant sociologist.
General System Society, too.
Right. So, yeah, you have Ken Boulding and Johann Galtung. Now, I don't know, Galtung, I don't think his training was in economics, but certainly he was as much a political economy. They call like development studies now. Right. It's an interdisciplinary field that includes political economy, but also, anthropology, sociology, history, and so on, even humanities. So I was organizing a panel for the annual meetings on Schumacher, E.F. Schumacher's Small is Beautiful.
Small is Beautiful, yeah.
And Buddhist economics. And I mean, Galtung, he has himself a book on Buddhist economics, and then he's written on the ideas, and when I invited him to participate in the panel in honor/memory celebration of Schumacher, he really appreciated it, said he would love to do it, but real world conflict resolution work. I mean, he is, or at least until not that long ago, because he would be, getting up there in seniority. So
in seniority, you mean in age?
Yeah. So, I mean, he's not just an academic. He's very involved in trying to mediate, conflict resolution dialogues and so on. So he couldn't make it, but he was very interested in Schumacher's work in nonviolence, and sometimes I wonder about MMT and nonviolence. Obviously MMT. It, it I like the big tent approach, which is
MMT.
yeah. I think we we want to be inclusive, and so like not only in terms of race and gender and things like that, but inclusive in the sense of uh, intellectual emphases or whatever. So, I mean, of course, MMT has some core principles that, we're not going to start arguing that, government federal budget deficits cause high interest rates or whatever. I mean, how? I mean, it's mind blowing that people would still be out there making these old arguments, because everybody knows now, and since the late 1980s at least, everyone knows that short-term interest rates are set by the central bank, and
Yes,
that those are
policy variable.
benchmark interest rates that influence other important rates in the economy, like the prime rate or whatever. So how can you then turn around and say deficits cause high interest rates? I mean,
No, I mean deficits
it's embarrassing.
the interest rate. I mean, it's obvious that humans are causing the high interest rates, right? The humans who are on the Federal Reserve.
Right.
They don't have to respond to deficits with the high interest rates. They choose to do so.
Right. And then, Juliet Shore. So she was at UMass Boston for a number of years. The Overworked American,
Yes, I
the
know. I have that book.
Overspent American, and so on and so forth. That she's been arguing for 4-day work week, for um, living wage, for many progressive policies. I'm sure Medicare for all and um, Green New Deal and so on. So her last couple books have they're they're perfectly consistent with the themes that she's been working on. However, she is adding some new ideas and challenges, and one is this idea of downshifting, which is a term that she uses. It kind of means like, I don't know, downwardly mobile, in the sense that the argument is, so there's these severe inequalities between the global north and the global south, but
Yes.
then also within each of these sets of countries, there's
Yes.
severe inequality.
Yeah. Huge difference.
So, so the one of the things then for sustainability is that there's going to need to be a a re I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but a transformation in the consumption patterns, and especially with energy, of course, but not only energy, consumption patterns generally in the global north. And so that they're, because the amount of, resources, exhaustible resources, fossil fuels, right, the carbon footprint, the ecological footprint of people in the global north, so to speak, is, it's shameful.
Way out of control.
Yeah. So the thing is that Juliet Shore is arguing that actually there's many people who they welcome a change in lifestyle and a change in values, I guess you might say, not economic values, but human values, that these these so Juliet Shore is arguing that young people, it's not that they don't want to have a prosperous economy or that they don't want to be, financially secure, but they do not view that as the ultimate goal and the end all and be all of everything. That instead, it's kind of a bit of anti-materialism in material, not historical materialism, but materialism in the sense of money and
The pursuit of money.
yeah.
The greed.
So
No greed.
An overemphasis on material things and all of this. So downshifting is a decrease in consumption, a decrease average in our ecological footprint, a decrease in our carbon footprint, but that is not kind of forced on us by the green police or whatever. Like we'll have eco-fascism or some kind of crazy thing like that, right? Instead, that not only will this not have to be forced upon us, or nor will we need to force it on ourselves, but instead, young people are welcoming this change in human values, in societal emphases. And I see it in my students. Also, my kids. The oldest is 31, the youngest is 24. So, that age group. But then, I always have students between, 18 and 35, I suppose, something like that. Anyway, the point being, and so a different idea of plenitude, as Joyce Shore's book calls it. So you see this around kind of with different notions, like, so you'll see like even like the MMT activists, speaking out against the scarcity worldview of mainstream economics. And so,
Yeah, the scarcity / austerity worldview.
Yeah, right. And so instead of that, we have like an idea that, there's abundance rather than scarcity. However, we don't want to allow that to slip into something that is environmentally irresponsible. And so we need a sustainable, environmentally and otherwise, a sustainable path to a fashioning of our consumption in the global north.
Of course. Yeah, something life patterns have to become,
Right.
They have to fit
Right.
what's happening to the environment around us.
Right.
Limitations, okay, not so much imposed by the compulsion upon us set by men, but our recognition that we have to live in a more limited way and that we cannot seek for the billions that are characteristic these days of so many around us.
Right.
But if we're all to live this way, which I think there are many, many very sensible people who see the wisdom of this, then it also has to be the case that it can't be purely voluntary. Okay, we see people more frequently bringing up just as they put it, kind of as a philosophical idea. Can we have any billionaires? Should there be any billionaires? The answer is obvious to me. No, there shouldn't be billionaires because they have too much power over the political system and they'll prevent us from doing what we have to do to meet the climate emergency. And we see that happening right now. So we have to get rid of the billionaires. So that means we might have to confiscate at some point what they have made, or what they have right now, what they have a social sort of license to possess. They think they own all that stuff, but the very concept of ownership that they're benefiting from is a cultural concept.
Right.
And of course, cultural constructs can be changed.
Yes. Right. And that then brings us, to another issue that I think can only be, put off for so long, but eventually we're going to have to deal with it. And that is habit change. So, how do we reform ourselves? Because it's not only our institutions and uh, systems that need to change. Also, there needs to be, at the same time, uh, and dare I say, inner revolution that corresponds to
The outer revolution.
our outer. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, dare you say it? Sure, you should say it.
I mean, it seems like there, at the end of the 60s, perhaps, that some people went in one direction, some people went in another direction, in terms of, the 70s became kind of known for um, uh, maybe seeking, within, but it was an abandoning of the important work that needed to be done in society, in changing the institutions, in political transformation. And so, we can't make the mistake in either direction. But the old idea of the opiate of the people, and this kind of thing, I feel like spiritual atheism is like a very real thing that um that one does not have to embrace a conception of uh supreme being or God, that is like in the Western mold
Yeah,
of, an external authority that
external
governs
authority with a
the earth
long
or
beard.
whatever.
Who is
Instead, yeah. Huh?
the idea of an external authority with a long beard who is,
Yeah,
of course.
right. Right, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think that it, it has to be okay to discuss these things. I mean, we're not talking about, I feel like, you know, materialism, historical materialism now, that that actually is perfectly consistent, because like a acknowledgement of a spiritual, for want of a better term, aspect of phenomena. So the idea would be that all phenomena have both a material and a spiritual aspect. There is no pure matter, and there is no pure spirit.
No pure spirit or pure mind.
Right. Exactly. So, to the greatest ideas can be destroyed if people are, a mess. And on the other hand, it is not enough to just try to work on the structures and systems and institutions. We have to do that, but we also, at the same time, have to, I guess it's an iterative process of, moving back and forth between, Hazel Henderson?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, she just recently passed away.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, she was another that I think of. Frances Moore LePay.
She's still writing.
Yes, and
I
her
still see.
daughter,
I still see
Anna
her
LePay.
articles. Oh, I haven't seen any of her daughter's articles.
Yes,
It's more of a
they
pet.
co-authored a book.
Ah,
Yeah, but Diet for a Small Planet. She used the revenue to start this Institute for Food and Development, or I forget the exact name, but it's something like that. And they have done such tremendous work over the last 50 years. And I'm going to have to wind this down, by the way. But she has an article that it's on almost every class syllabus of mine, whether it's undergrad, masters, whatever. It's called
would you like to put that
individual
in the private chat?
individual and community in society and nature. And it makes this argument about the non-dual approach to the physical or material and spiritual aspects of phenomena. Yeah, I'll put the name of the article in the chat. It was co-authored with J. Baird Callicott, a philosopher. Okay, so Frances Moore LePay and J. Baird Callicott.
Beard.
Individual and community in Society and Nature. And it's in a book that was edited by Michael Zweig. What did I say? Zweig.
Oh, that's ZWEIG.
Is it EI or IE?
Um,
Uh,
I
what
would
did you
guess
say?
it's
EI?
probably I would guess that it's probably
Yeah.
EI.
You're right. Okay. Editor. And the book is called something like Religion and Economic Justice or something. I don't know. I might have to look it up.
Religion.
But I think it was Temple University Press, since it was my alma mater. But in any case, it is a great article, and it rejects both the over materialism of the former socialist systems, but also rejects the how would you put it, the individualism or super individualism of the classical liberal approach, and they also associate the over materialistic approach of the former Soviet type systems
Yes.
with some ecological worldview that also subsumes the individual to the whole. So that's the challenge, is to find a way to balance those two sides.
How can we quickly relate this to MMT?
Right. Well, so I mean, in like we talked about in the other conversations, it didn't take long between the development of the key principles of what came to be known as modern money theory, and on the other side, the issues of social and ecological justice, and the feminist and anti-racist struggles, and so on. So I started working on on those topics from the earliest days, really, of MMT. I mean, 1997 to 2005 or six, in that like, say, 10-year period. A lot of work on MMT and green jobs and sustainability, MMT and social justice, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, the key is that lack of government revenue is not stopping us from achieving our goals.
Sure, because we can always make more.
That which used to be problem number one, and we didn't even have to go on to the others because we would never solve that one, and da 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 da. No, that is not stopping us. So if that is the case, then we got to move on to the next task, right?
Which is, how can we live in a sustainable way?
Right. And
if we're going to live in a sustainable way, then we have to downshift, and we have to get to plenitude.
Right.
Okay, from your viewpoint, is there a nation state at present, or a society at present, that is closer to plenitude than any other?
Well, I'm really interested in Costa Rica. And one of the things is that it feels like there's momentum in both directions. Like, there's a momentum on the right that has really been blowing the left away. And then on the other hand, there are these forces that are not giving up or giving in. And I mean, it's an amazing time to be alive and to be part of this kind of coalition made up of such a diverse array. I feel so much appreciation, and also the students and the young people generally are going to be leading the way, and I'll be right behind them.
Good.
All right, Joe. I thank you, and
I thank you, Matt.
To be continued.
Very, very interesting. When do you think we'll be ready for another conversation?
I don't know. Let's talk offline and we'll figure it out. But, I mean, we can discuss offline, but like, we could have like some kind of semi-regular, I don't know, once a month, or.
We certainly could.
Okay.
We could include also some other people in it.
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
So
start to platform some other people.
Yes.
Have I don't know, a panel of 5 or 6, something like that.
Oh, we got some great people.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know. Okay. So we
Okay.
discussed
Yep.
this offline.
Yep.
And for now, okay, I'll see you in a while.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Okay, folks. So that was different. It kind of went to the edges of things. Uh, some deep things we talked about, I think. Uh, thank you all for coming. I am going to pick up on a few comments. Steve Ghostart said, someone in RBN chat called Stephanie Kelton an American exceptionalist. Well, that is very interesting, Steve. Why did that someone call Stephanie an American exceptionalist? Did they explain? Steve says there are 400 plus ocean dead zones, totaling more than 245,000 km squared areas, greater than that of the UK. Steve Ghostart says the largest dead zone is the Arabian Sea. Covers almost entire 63,700 square miles of the Gulf of Oman. The second largest is in the Gulf of Mexico, almost 6,000 square miles in size. Is that the Bermuda Triangle? Steve, Jeff Denton leaves an icon I can't read. And then we had the references from Matt, individual and community and society and nature. I think that Matt was teaching us about how he thinks about some of the deeper problems that MMTers get to when they pursue their paradigm to the end. Questions like, how are we going to live when we have no governmental financial constraints, but instead have lots of lots of constraints of a different kind? And the answer is, well, he has started to think about the answer, and he has given us some of his thoughts on that. So thank you for coming. And those of you who are still here, thank you for staying. I admit this was a little more philosophical than most of our shows, but I hope you appreciate it anyway, and that you will please like, share, and subscribe. Spread it over the web so people can hear some deeper thoughts for a change. So thanks a lot. And tomorrow I'll be back. I expect I'll be back with Lisa tomorrow. She couldn't make it here tonight, but I expect that I'll be back with her tomorrow, when our subject will be the EPA, West Virginia versus the EPA. We're going to go over that in very much detail with all kinds, of implications. The implications of that are so serious that we need to spend a good long time to discuss them. And that's going to be in the context of an in-depth show for tomorrow night. And then on Thursday, we will be covering the primary results and the implications of the primary results. And I suspect we're going to get into a little background on the platforms of some of the other progressives who have still to run and who should be running with the assistance of the dump the incumbents ideas that we have. So that's going to be what's happening for the rest of the week. And for now, I say to Dolores, good night, Dolores, and good night, Steve Go Start, and Jeff Denton, and Brandy Weaver, and Steve Wolfbrandt, if you're still here. Thank you all for coming.